श्री राधा माधव श्री राधा गोविंद की जय, भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी स्वरूपाद की जय, श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, गुरु वृंद की जय, समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Krishna Krishna Mutare Shivaji Indra Swami Bhakti Rasayana Krishna Namo Vishnu Krishna Krishna Bhakti Rasayana Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaur Bhavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunvadi Vasyapyade Shatarine Om Agyantimirandasya Ginandana Shakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prema Prema Puro Vigur Purusha Bhakta Ganan Sadasi Sadasmakavan Krishna Bhagavan Vacham Sime Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Less quantity, but I suppose in Japan we are after quality rather than quantity.
On weekdays, what?
it's weak.
Yeah.
Attendance is weak during the week. Okay, so let's start with reflections on yesterday. Hopefully, in 24 hours, you still remember something.
Spiritual entrepreneurship.
Okay, yeah, discussing the subject of spiritual entrepreneurship. Anything else?
We need to strive to have a good communication with the world, with the sick, big people, influential people.
Okay. Something else?
You said, Maharaj, about first quality is think big.
Yes, first entrepreneur is thinking big. Yes. And we were discussing 422. Yadrija labha santushtadban patito vimatsara samasthida vasita uchakrit papinani bhatyate. One who is satisfied with gain, which comes on its own accord, who does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. So, freedom from entanglement, despite of acting in this world. That was the theme. And I suppose we'll just continue with next text, which is 23. Gata sangasya muktasya. Gata sangasya muktasya. Jnanava stita cetasa. Jnanava stita cetasa. Yagyaya charata karma. Yagyaya charata karma. Samagram praviliyate. Samagram praviliyate. Gata sangasya muktasya. Jnanava stita cetasaha. Yagyaya charata karma. Samagram praviliyate. Translation purpose by His Divine Grace Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Purpose: becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person Vishnu, Krishna. The resultant reactions to all such works certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita cetasa ignaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So, it's the same subject matter. It's very interesting. So it's all so well connected in Bhagavad Gita. How it works. That everything we do must be sacrificed for Vishnu, for the Supreme Lord. As it was already explained in the 3rd chapter, 3:9, famous verse, which is Yagyaptat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandana. That everything should be done as sacrifice for Vishnu, otherwise one will become entangled in one's karma. And this is a very strong verse which emphasizes freedom and liberation, right? Because Srila Prabhupada explains that devotional service starts after liberation. Before liberation, there is no possibility of really doing the devotional service.
But devotional service would lead.
No, devotional service starts after liberation. So one has to be liberated soul to perform devotional service. And therefore, naturally, by associating with liberated personalities, we can become liberated. So that's the advantage of devotional service. And we at least have to appreciate the position of liberation and understand how we can become liberated, right? And so yesterday we were discussing yesterday we were discussing the first and foremost sign of spiritual entrepreneur. Entrepreneur means professional, right? Not necessarily that it has to be like selfishly motivated, right? Because Srila Prabhupada was doing entrepreneurial work his whole life, but he was never selfishly motivated, right? And we know so many other wonderful examples of people who are very professional and very well established in the society and very wealthy, but never considered themselves to be the doers and just do everything for Krishna, right? I know a number of such people who are very humble and very simple, despite of their wealth and despite of their positions and fame and everything else. So, but this is the first and foremost sign, thinking big, having broad consciousness, right? That's why the first purpose of ISKCON is really big. To unite the whole world and bring peace, real peace, lasting peace. Yatvamam Shantim Richati, to the whole world, right? Which seems to be impossible proposal in Kali Yuga, but Srila Prabhupada believed that this is possible by spiritual knowledge and spiritual technology, or techniques of spiritual life. And so this is very important that we'll discuss other signs also, but just to emphasize again on the same point, why thinking big is first and foremost, because Krishna consciousness is meant for everybody. And there is a wonderful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, text number 10, which says, Akama sarva kama va moksha kama darathiti prena bhakti yoginaya jata purusham param. That whether one is akama, devoid of any material desires, very rare people, or sarva kama, having all types of material desires, very common, or moksha kama, desiring liberation. Udaradhi, if someone is broad-minded or Prabhupada says, has broad intelligence, broad perception of things. Tivrena Bhakti Yogina. One can be very, very focused on practicing Bhakti Yoga. And Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yajata Purusham Param, that in this way, by acting in this way, one can achieve the topmost perfection. So it is why it is very interesting. That seems to be almost contradictory. Broad perception, broad consciousness, and very narrow focus on Krishna, on practicing Bhakti Yoga. So how the broad and narrow can combine like that? But it is very natural, because Krishna has the broadest perception of things, right? Krishna is the one who is seeing the biggest picture. And so if we have the broader, it's just how it is connected to each other. The broader we see things, the more Krishna conscious we are. Simple. Right? And the more Krishna conscious we are, the more we can be focused on serving Krishna. And so this is really important, to have broad perception, to have broad consciousness. And therefore, thinking big, this is how real consciousness starts, with thinking big. As we were mentioning yesterday, Prabhupada was joking that this was my only problem. I could never think small. Right? And we wish that this would become our problem as well. Right? How many of you want to have this kind of problem? Okay. In the same way as Prabhupada was saying, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj discussing with one Prabhupada disciple, he said, Prabhupada was saying that, in relation to that Narad Muni preaching to the sons of Daksha, and so instead of becoming Prajapatis, they would renounce this world, and Daksha would become very offended and curse Narad Muni not to be able to stay in one place for more than few days, right? And Narad Muni was very happy with this curse, and so he took it as a blessing to travel non-stop. And Prabhupada said, in the same way, the parents of my disciples, because I also encouraged them for renunciation, they cursed me, not being able to stay for a long time in one place, so I have to travel all over. But then he said, I needed to stay in one place for longer to complete the book, producing my books. So I had to transfer this curse to my senior disciples. So Jayapataka Maharaj said, Prabhupada told me I'm transferring this curse onto you, so you travel. I'll stay in one place and finish with the books. And Jayapataka Maharaj said, now I'm cursed, I have to travel. And then that Prabhupada disciple, he said, if you could please give me some of this curse also. So whatever is curse for materialistic people is a blessing for a devotee. Right? So yes, that broad perception Prabhupada was describing as his only problem, but we want to have this kind of problem. And so let's see practically if anyone of you wants to share what's your big thinking. Anyone has any big ideas, big desires for Japan?
Yeah, so for me, I'm more making interesting people for Krishna consciousness movement, especially young generation. So make more devotee and publishing books. We have many books, so we can somehow how to distribute many kind of distribute, not only street anyway. So we become Sankirtan movement join. So become serious devotee. So this way I will try to help some good devotee. New age especially. So we old. Mind is old style.
Younger people.
Yeah, younger devotee join. So I'm more enlightened than Krishna consciousness.
Okay. All right. Have more young devotees in the movement and have books distributed through other channels rather than just street book distribution.
Like a Tajiri-san in Kyushu, Island, Kyushu, or I saw 2 days before we have program. So one boy is study as Krishna consciousness. So he's so very nice, great. And he make children and name with Jagannath. Jagannath, Balaram's mother, 3 persons. One is women, they are kirtan and some public place. They thinking this is not a religion. But he doctor. If I do different, he doctor, he famous, not so much famous, but some, he's chief doctor, his own company. And he from university, nice university. It's nice, for general people. They chanting, people accepting, or nice, like that. New age.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No one else has any big ideas for Krishna consciousness.
Sometimes we feel afraid of telling what we feel big, because we feel, means at least I feel what the other person means, like you or some other devotees will feel. Not devotees, but other people.
No, don't fear. Just say.
No, I'm just telling. I'm not fear. That's why I told you.
You have fear.
Sometimes it's there, because if we tell, because in the office also, if we office and outside with relatives, we are following ISKCON and there are many rules, regulations, restrictions. So the others are not comfortable with. So at least I've heard from many devotees that they keep that topic aside and they enjoy with their relatives in their own way.
Trying to understand. So big thinking is forbidden in ISKCON or what?
No, but others doesn't understand it. That's all.
Who doesn't understand?
Means other outside world, means any friends, relatives.
They don't understand what?
What we feel of becoming big in spirituality.
Okay. What do we understand? First of all, we need to understand ourselves.
Yeah. My thinking is kind of, I don't know how big it is, but my thought is how much I can put myself into more Krishna consciousness and devotional service. As you said, like devotional service starts after liberation. So maybe my thought would go like to do some tasks or activities to involve myself so that I can reach that stage to go into devotional service.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Now I can
Okay.
hear. Yes.
Okay.
I like to share my thoughts, Maharaj. I
Yes.
like to practice myself pure bhakti, and I like to share pure bhakti with others. And I like to help myself to practice pure bhakti and to help others to practice pure bhakti.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Yes.
I don't know if is it possible or no, but I always want to chant more this kirtan, harinam, outside, inside, so that means always I see Japanese people going whenever I'm sitting outside or something. I always say that how many days means in my campus, many old people are there, many old Japanese people, and whenever I see them outside, I always just one thing always comes to my mind that how many days are left for them and they don't know who Krishna is. At least once they should chant Hare Krishna. So I don't know how it is possible, but I always think that means Hare Krishna's it should go everywhere. Means everywhere they should listen Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Very nice.
I always think that. Means Sanjay Krishna Prabhu also once asked me about this, and I told this thing only to him also. Means I want them to chant. Means only to chant.
Okay.
At least they will get a next means, opportunity, maybe. But let's chant.
Okay. If Nitai Prabhu wants young people to participate, you want old people to chant. Okay. Good.
Yes, it's big.
Maharaj, Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
From ISKCON point of view, I feel like the way in Japan we see the convenience stores, right, everywhere,
Yes.
or the Jido Hambaiki, what we say, the
But vending machine.
vending machines.
Okay. Yes.
Whenever I see all these things, I always feel like these convenience stores. There should be stores of like Krishna Mart or whatever name, but where we will sell the books and classes going on in that, and also like the vending machine should have where we can sell the chanting beads. So
Okay.
like this, where
Okay.
everywhere.
This is pretty good. Pretty broad. Okay. All right. So,
I would like to hear your.
well, mine is I want very first purpose of ISKCON happening. And first purpose of ISKCON doesn't mean just Hare Krishna. With knowledge and spiritual techniques means any spiritual knowledge and any spiritual techniques, because God is one. And so any genuine spiritual tradition which is helping people to advance is beneficial. And people don't accept religions nowadays because they think religion is something to cheat them, right? In the name of God, which unfortunately is happening many times, right? And they think religions are doing these two things. First of all, they cheat people in the name of God, which in many cases is true. And second, they think religions are very selfish because they fight with each other. Selfish, yes. You know, these two big problems they see in relation to religions. First is cheating, and the second is fighting. And so, of course, passion and fighting is ignorance. Right? And so, therefore, they don't want to have anything to do with religion. They want just to be secular. So, in many ways, religions, they brought upon themselves very bad name because they became so materialistic. And actually, this is why the first the second verse of Bhagavatam is just an introductory glorification. Mangala Charana Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yatadvayat, etc. Glorifying the Supreme Lord. But second verse is immediately explaining what Bhagavatam is for. Dharma Projita Koitavatra Paramanya Matsaranam Satam. That this scripture is meant for benefiting devotees, pure devotees who are free from envy. And it is meant to eliminate cheating religiosity. Kaitava Dharma, right? Cheating religiosity. So actually Bhakti is against cheating religiosity, materialistic religiosity. And materialistic religiosity is frustrating people to such an extent that they take up to materialism and atheism, right? But there are many, many very sincere people in different religions who are really want to serve God and benefit people, and they have no selfish motivations. And I would like us to work with these people in different traditions and have common programs with them. First of all, it gives us numbers, which we are sorely missing in this country. Because people, if 2 or 3 people do something, it's just some strange people. Nothing serious, right? But if 2 or 3,000 people do something, it will be very impressive. So, as Mahabharata explains, strength is in numbers, right? And so, because we have very similar goals with these people, with other serious spiritual practitioners, we can work together with them and have common programs for introducing people to the same principles. My spiritual master, Indra Swami, he created this kind of program in South Africa. He organized Ratha Yatra in Durban. And the theme of Ratha Yatra was social cohesion. Cohesion means working together, right? And it is very serious problem in South Africa. They always fight with each other, always clash. And government is looking for solutions. And so he announced that social cohesion program under the banners of Ratha Yatra, and he invited many politicians, and he invited many other spiritual leaders from different traditions. And it was very unusual Ratha Yatra, because, for example, during big Ratha Yatras, and in some places we have big Ratha Yatras, like I've been to Toronto, they have 3 days event with different, festivals, chanting, this and that, so many things going on. And they have these tents, and you have some Swami or some senior preacher answering questions of the public. And there are many new people, of course, come, guests. But at that Durban Ratha Yatra, instead of just one senior devotee sitting in the tent, they had, Hare Krishna Swami, Muslim mullah, Christian priest, Buddhist monk, and Jewish rabbi sitting all together and answering the questions of the public. So practically, public could see how different traditions have very similar values and very similar philosophical understanding of things. And this was very impressive for people. So this is how I see the first purpose of ISKCON being fulfilled. That actually ISKCON creates that cooperation between faiths. And luckily, by the influence of the Golden Age and so much of preaching, already interfaith movement is very strong. And it is something we could take big advantage of. And actually, like, if you have anything which is benefiting public, people from other groups are ready to work with devotees, no problem. It just, you have to have an idea, that's all you have to have, in order to engage other people. But if you don't have an idea, then, what are you going to do? Nothing. Right? Like here, when devotees went to distribute prasadam to Fukushima, right, victims, they didn't have enough, there were not enough devotees to go, right? Any of you went for that prasadam distribution? You went. Anyone else? You went. So I heard that Art of Living people also went, right? So this was an example that if there is something happening big and beneficial for public, you can tell other people. You can join and they will join. And in Australia, same thing happened. That devotees had to distribute prasadam to old and disabled people at home, and they had to do the delivery, Meals on Wheels, and they didn't have enough capacity for that. But then through interfaith, they connected with one Christian group, and that Christians, they said, yes, if you provide us with food, we can do the delivery. So devotees were making prasadam, and Christians were delivering that to people's homes, which is a very nice example of cooperation. And so the more of these examples, the broader scale examples we create of spiritual cooperation, the more the public will see these faiths. They not only fight with each other, and they not only exploiting people for their benefit, right? But they also do something good for people, and they work together. And so this is my big thinking. And if we do that, government will be happy to give any funding we want. So it's like, you want to do something big, you want to have a lot of funding, all these opportunities are available. Just think of one thing. What is it that public needs in Japan? what are the problems of the Japanese society and how Krishna consciousness can address these problems in an effective way, right? So that's the only, instead of thinking me, my, why, this is what big thinking is. Think of the whole country, at least. Think of all these millions of people. And what can you do for them in Krishna consciousness? Because the biggest problem is not external. Biggest problem is with consciousness, right? For example, stress, depression, suicides. Why it's all there? Because people have problems with their consciousness. And Krishna consciousness is the topmost level of consciousness, right? So we do have every single solution for every single problem. And there are so many things we could do to help people. But we're not doing this because we're only thinking, me, I am a devotee, and this is my little religion, right? And what can I get for me from that, right? And that's the big problem. I, me, mine. But now from, material I, me, mine, it shifted into narrow religious I, me, mine. And this is how we get stuck and nothing's happening. And we have to struggle for everything. And luckily, we have Indian community to give support. Otherwise, there would be zero, right? Nothing would be happening here in Japan.
Yeah, that's challenge. Our challenge, right? So we have challenge, but cooperation, like I say, harmony. We need each other, more nice communication. Then if we understand each other, what is the purpose of the mind, of consciousness, like a movement, many ways. So if we together and convince one point, more focusing how to do in Japan, we know Japan. We know how something idea, so we cooperate. Then become more, our movement is going to Japan more in life. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also true. Charity begins at home. Huh?
Each other some idea. I'm also outside. If we each other understand, then convince and harmony become big. If each person, separate, all right, but not so much. Right.
Charity begins at home. Okay. Any other thoughts on the same subject?
You gave a very nice perspective about the problems of the society. Here in Japan, what I have experienced is there are so many old age population, and Mataji was also saying, everywhere there is old age home. There are old people living alone in the house, nothing to do, basically sitting every day, they are just living till the breathing just to live, like that kind of. So, as an organization, if we can visit some old age homes and give them some devotional experience, just prepare some simple prasad, some lecture, and a little bit of chanting. Slowly, I think this can also be a part of problem solving for the society.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Yeah. So that can, and that's also what we need. But of course, we need time, energy, everything is required. But that we can do along with, as you said, harmony with Japanese society.
Yeah.
that can be a real benefit to the society. And we are in a position to do that.
Yeah, I have an experience in Osaka.
Yeah.
20 years before we going, and we have to wait because many religions want to like that. Christian and Buddhist. After 1 month we joined, we distribute prasada, kirtan. So the religious people already focusing at that point. So of course, small cannot hold the house. Big one maybe cannot. But small ones they accept because they want to help people.
Yeah.
Then they accept many religions want to know.
Well, as Maharaj said, we can also join those genuine organizations and do together in some cases.
Yeah, that's a big problem in Japan. All the people.
Yeah. That is. So Maharaj, when you said that we can join some genuine organization or actual spiritually enlightened person, what is the criteria? Like, if I take practically in our temple, there are some people who come from some other streams, like somebody, like also Prabhupada says that Mayavadi Bhasa Sunni Tunle Hoi Hoi Savanas. We have to be really careful about how much we are mixing with other spiritual organizations or philosophies. Otherwise, it gets too much of energy, again goes into justifying whose philosophy is right. So when we have, so like what I was telling in practically in temple, where we do get requests from some traveling spiritual leader from some other faith. They want to have a gathering here in temple. They know temple is a spiritual place. So they want to have a lecture where they will collect their own people and have some kind of spiritual gathering, which is maybe very different from the spiritual philosophy. In that case, it really becomes difficult when you say about cooperating with people, but also safeguarding your philosophy. It's very difficult to practically manage that, unless, of course, we are in that practice.
Yeah. One time when Krishna Balaram Mandir was just newly constructed, and then not so many people were visiting. And then Prabhupada was there, and at some point even less people started coming, literally very, very few. And Prabhupada said, what happened? Why so few people are coming to the temple? And the devotee said, well, there is one very big Mayavadi sannyasi, and he came to Vrindavan, and so many people went for his classes. And that's why we don't have so many people coming to the temple. And Prabhupada said, invite him here. He can give classes in Krishna Balaram. And the devotees were saying, like, but Prabhupada, he is Mayavadi. And Prabhupada said, the main thing that people will come to the temple and they hear the holy name and you give them prasad. We want people to come.
How about the people here in the Mayavadi philosophy, confused?
Yeah, that they go to here anyway. You cannot stop that. But at least people get prasadam and holy name. So this was Prabhupada's thinking. But it's also important that what Lord Chaitanya said, Mayavadi, Krishna Aparadi, right? That who is Mayavadi? One who offends Krishna, one who offends devotees, one who offends the devotional practices. These kind of people are Mayavadis. And so, if you look in real terms, that you can see that amongst Mayavadis, you can find people who are respectful towards Krishna consciousness and even supportive of Krishna consciousness movement. Like in Fiji, there is one very big Mayavadi sannyasi, and he really likes Prabhupada. And he has full set of Prabhupada's books, and he gives big support to the movement. And when devotees are asking him, what about, like Prabhupada saying so many bad things about Mayavadis, he says, I fully agree. All these Mayavadis are rascals.
He said, yes.
Because they don't follow Shankaracharya properly. And he said, this is true, that, Shankaracharya wanted people to develop devotion to Krishna, and they don't do that. And that's why all these problems are there. Even though officially he's Mayavadi sannyasi, but he's sincere. And we know that in Lord Chaitanya's time, he would find such sincere Mayavadis, and he would make them into devotees, right? At the same time, we have our own ISKCON devotees, so-called devotees, who are very offensive towards other devotees and the process of devotional service, etc., etc. Right? So, are they better than Mayavadis? I doubt. So that's why it is very important to discriminate according to one's personal consciousness rather than according to one's affiliation with a group. Very simple thing. If someone has broad consciousness, then you can work with such person. If someone has narrow, fanatical, ignorant understanding, don't have anything to do with that person.
One more thing, Maharaj, in Japan, we have so many communities. We have Nepali community, we have Bangladeshi community, we have similarly, there are so many nationalities and they have their own communities. So they all have their own set of festivals. And they are always on the lookout for a place like a temple where they can have some festival of their own. Like maybe Bengali community wants to worship Durga. The Durga festival is very, very popular in the community. But we strictly avoid such kind of gatherings or festivals to do in the temple. So, but maybe if we can have some broad mind and try to find some solution how we can work with those communities, that will also, in my understanding, bring the acceptance of the temple across a wider set of people.
Yeah, we have Durga on the altar. Subhadra is Durga. So we have no problem. Subhadra.
Yeah.
And then you can explain that Jagannath and Baladeva are their brothers, so make sure you do something for them as well. And what do they like? They like chanting Hare Krishna. And Bengalis, yes, you can tell them about Lord Chaitanya. You have your BCC, right?
Yeah, we have the law.
Yeah, or many demigods and deity there. I join religious group discussion once a month. Christian group. They're making. They are very, especially Islam person he's very chacho. some companies, cheap, very intelligent. So with a Hindu person in the same company. So then he from talking about Allah, very strict talking. And also other religion here. Yeah, different Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Islam, everybody different way of speaking, from scripture or something. But that purpose is that they want to make world peace because so many fighting, especially religious fighting. They want to stop it. They're nice people. They are different religion, one sense. But the purpose is, become a peaceful war. So after talking, they are very happy. How about you? I like you. So we can cooperate and make peace in the world. I want to join like that. So Christian group, they are making that kind of effort. So purpose is a big purpose, and then we are different. So, but still they want to make harmony. That's very beautiful because I feel so much.
Yes. So, just to move a little bit further on the same point, second sign of a spiritual entrepreneur is believe God can. So we serve a God who created amazing things out of nothing. Right? In the beginning, there was nothing. So Krishna created everything out of nothing. Why do we think he won't do the same for his church or temple or program? Right? Spiritual entrepreneurs believe he will, and they see him do it. They would agree with Henry Ford, who said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you cannot, you are right. One more time. Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you cannot, you are right. You understand this? Before you dismiss this as positive thinking nonsense, remember Jesus could not perform many miracles in his hometown because of people's lack of faith. Then moments later, he walked on water and fed 5,000 because people in those communities had faith. Spiritual entrepreneurs believe God can, and they see him do it. So I don't know how much you are familiar with the story of Jesus. In his own hometown. But then after he went out, he was performing so many miracles. Why? Because people in his hometown didn't have faith in him. So does it remind you of Prabhupada? Yes?
His family members not having.
And where Prabhupada couldn't do much. Same Prabhupada. Huh?
India doesn't work.
Yes. Why? Why? In India it didn't work. Why in India he couldn't do anything? Same Prabhupada. Same Prabhupada who came to America. In America he did so many amazing things. In India he could do nothing, practically speaking. Why?
What I have understood is like in India, the Krishna consciousness and the philosophy of God and this kind of has been a part of this society's knowledge since long years. So in India, if somebody speaks to me about God, it's nothing new for me because we have grown up in such society and family. So making that impact or impression. in my understanding, will be difficult in India. But when Prabhupada went with that pure philosophy to people who were waiting for it, or who could understand the uniqueness, or something different that they experience, so they could immediately take it up.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, everyone agrees with that? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes. Haribol.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I feel it's like not appreciating, they not recognize Prabhupada's devotion and bhakti, and what message he wants to give to the whole India.
Yes.
There is not faith and appreciation and recognition.
Yes. Because in India, people were thinking, he is another Indian, same like me. What's nothing special about him? So they didn't take him seriously. But when he came to America, wow, real Indian Swami, my God. So they took him so serious. And Prabhupada could do so many things. So what is the lesson for us from Prabhupada's example? From this example? That work only with those people who does what? That's right.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj, I feel that if we don't get the situation where people appreciates you or recognize you, then you have to move to another place or maybe try another options where you
Yes.
can start from zero, like you can start from the beginning.
Yes. Work only with those people who appreciate and support you. And those who don't, just don't do anything with them because it's useless. All right. Hare Krishna. So we'll pause here till Thursday night, I think, right? Tomorrow night we won't have program, English speaking program, because we have Russian program, right? So yeah, I think we'll continue.
Which time?
Huh?
Time.
I think same time.
Evening.
Yeah. So tomorrow we'll stop. Tomorrow we'll pause and then continue on Thursday. I hope it was useful today. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Bhagavad Subhadra, Shri Nitai Gaura Sundar ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna.